It was rough. I think it was worse than we expected. We knew that we weren't where we needed to be and that obviously we had a lot more work to do, and this wasn't necessarily our best foot forward.
We knew that the product was good. Like, if we just had that extra time, we knew what we could get.
It was a lot harder than we thought it would be, and we obviously fell down.
It broke my heart to not be able to ship that day one. We were pushing hard to get the game done, and then, the global pandemic hit and just floored us.
The team was basically saying, this isn't the game we're going to be proud of.
Halo is a space opera franchise that first debuted in 2001, alongside Microsoft's answer to the Sony PlayStation, the Xbox. It quickly sold millions of copies and solidified itself as one of the premier brands exclusive to the Xbox.
Everybody has that first love moment for Halo. I took 3 days off work, my best friend and I, and we just sat in his house drinking beer and eating pizza and inviting friends over. We both played the campaign next to each other and then did some co-op.
Lugging LAN parties around and playing Blood Gulch with our friends until 2 in the morning. That had been common in the PC world, obviously. That wasn't a new thing, but has not been that ubiquitous in a console sense before.
Not all games have the franchise component where you have 30 books and you can go deep and you can have all these characters that represent a huge spectrum of people in the future doing all these cool things.
That's the very cool part about Halo. I think if you asked 50 different people, what is it about the franchise, you would get a variety of answers.
It's like a breakdance battle, right? But we have rocket launchers and things like that.
In 2007, Halo's creative studio Bungie split from Microsoft, leaving Microsoft to hand off the Halo franchise to 343 Industries, a studio that had just formed the same year.
When we spun Bungie out, I would say there's huge shoes to fill. Building Halo and creating Halo is not easy.
In today's day and age, the community never goes away. Communications never go away. It's real-time feedback, constantly in your face, whether you want it or not. It's stressful, to be frank.
In Halo 4, a lot of us were figuring out us as a studio and how are we the new Halo. We were probably chasing the tail of some of the other dragons at that point, right, a little bit. And then 5, we went back to kind of an identity.
The story didn't meet players' expectations, but I think that the multiplayer did. We really took that moment to kind of say, what is Halo? I'm if we're going to move Halo forward, what is that deliberate core part of Halo that we can't deviate from going forward? Halo traditionally has been every 3 to 4 years blockbuster movie. We didn't feel that we should be telling a blockbuster Halo story every year like Call of Duty. How do we still have our big campaign stories, but then how do we also keep our users engaged and keep them having new content?
343 Industries opted to take a free-to-play route with updating seasonal content to maximize the amount of audience they could reach. They also wanted to return Halo back to its roots and be a spiritual reboot that would speak to the core values that Halo fans came to love.
The relationship with a product isn't just from the creator perspective. You need to be able to get as much information as you can about how the people are receiving that product and wanting to engage with it. In the previous years, we would typically just bring in 60 people to come play the game in a playtest lab, getting tons of surveys, and then bringing them back the next day to play it. That was impossible once COVID hit.
We have kind of routines and rituals, and suddenly we're home. And so we had to rebuild processes, and I was writing batch file scripts to deploy builds and make a process for that so we can get people to build quickly and effectively, and working with our engineers on how often can we deploy, and building new playtest routines, and how do we communicate. It's all of these things had to be figured out while we're trying to ship this thing. We have an internal pro team that gives us feedback, and we have the HCS competitive community, real telemetry data that tells you what is the average kill per weapon, and Twitter, you have people, Reddit vomiting things all over the place. We have to pull all of this data together.
But campaign, you can't just put those bits out there. That is the thing that's probably most sacred to fans. They don't want to get it spoiled. We went after those challenges by trying new technology, streaming things to people. One of the things from user research that we saw from this testing, we actually were kind of withholding the items from people and the upgrade path a little bit like a traditional RPG type experience. In reality, what we needed to do, and I believe we changed some of the tuning to bring that power in so that you could experience the grapple shot and its power earlier. So you were Master Chief at his fullest potential much earlier in the experience. Those bits, it's not maybe something that a player would realize, but it's absolutely something that great designers can do when they have time.
On July 23, 2020, 343 Industries showcased their progress in Halo Infinite. Immediately, fan reaction was mixed, with many detractors pointing out the last-gen quality of the graphics. Less than a month later, on August 11th, 343 Industries and Microsoft made a decision to delay the release of their game by 1 year. To help right the ship, they brought on Joseph Staten, one of the original creators of Halo, who was taking a 12-year hiatus from the franchise. But regardless, Halo Infinite would not launch alongside the Xbox Series X.
It was an incredibly painful decision because it was so important to us as a team to actually bring Halo back to launch with the console.
We got all caught up in the console wars, and so just everything got magnified. We weren't as far along or in a place that we would have liked to have been to land that reveal.
So when the decision came to take that little breath, right, and kind of realized that we were not in a good place, we wouldn't have shipped something we were proud of, it was kind of relieving.
It would have been great for the business to be there. It would have been great for Halo to be there. But it wasn't the right thing for Infinite.
I don't shy away from the harsh feedback. I've said this before, it's not always easy, but I would much rather have a community that's super passionate than just apathy and no one cares.
It's challenging to always be constantly open and transparent with fans because we don't want to expose them to the uncertainty and sometimes that churn that happens on any game development process.
Shipping this game was hard. Like, COVID smacked us in the face in the middle of it all, and we want to make sure it's right.
The decision we're making, though, and I believe this is the right one, even though it's hard some days, is to make sure that when we talk to our fans, that they can rely on what we say. Fans are really soon going to be exposed to some really cool stuff that we've got going on for season 2. It's taken a little bit longer to get the engine up to speed. Communication's flowing in the way that we want to, but the engine is cranking, and I'm super excited about the next year and beyond.